Show starts in 1 minute.
The moment our fellow geeks, dweebs, nerds, and other unfortunates have been fervently waiting for has finally arrived. It's time for TMI, Confessionals of the Nerd Kind. And now, your hosts, Jeff Nerfherder Chandler, Jim Kaiju Baker, and Christina Yojimbo Henry. You can continue. And now, let's get on with the show. Here is TMI.
All right. We're doing this. We're doing Pinocchio.
We're doing this. So Disney Plus, in this preview of D23 that they've been showing of what's been happening, one of the things that they showed was a brand new opening Disney logo with the Disney castle. From your reaction, you haven't seen this yet.
No.
Right? So it's because it's 100 years of the Disney studio.
Okay. Oh, maybe I have seen that. I've seen something with the 100.
So
the 100's incorporated into
the 100 is incorporated into the Disney logo, and there's new animation with the castle.
Wait, Snow White was 1927?
No, it was 30s. So I'm thinking that this must be from when the shorts were produced, like Steamboat Willie and previous.
So 22.
Yeah.
Jeez. That's a hell of a long time ago.
Yeah.
100 years. Wow.
So I guess for the next year, we're going to be having this new logo, or maybe forever, or until they do another one. Who knows? But it was interesting to me because I'm not sure when they're going to start it, because this movie that we're discussing did not have the new 100-year logo.
Not that I saw. Yeah.
Who knows? Maybe Strange Worlds we'll see it, or maybe they won't start until 2023. Yeah.
Maybe. I don't know.
So welcome, everybody.
Yes, welcome show. Indeed.
Yes.
It's all Disney all the time here.
All Disney all the time.
We're still talking about D23 from last week.
Yep.
So, but you know, it's funny you mentioned that because Marvel did the 10, the Marvel Studios with the IO and Studios as the 10.
Yes. Yep.
So they did that for a blip in time, obviously for like 1 year.
I remember that. I remember that. Yeah.
I guess they considered Iron Man the first.
Yes.
2008.
It would have to be
2018 then. Getting old. Oh, well. Speaking of old, when did the original Pinocchio come out?
1940, right? Yeah, 1940 is the original.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're right. Yep.
So yeah, speaking of old, again, I always bring my son up on this podcast, but we watch Pinocchio because he loves anything to do with Disney CGI. Like, he critiques the effects right along with me.
He must have had a field day with this one.
And I had to tell him, every once in a while I remind him, who Geppetto is, right? He's like, who? Like, that's Geppetto. That's the voice of Woody. That's Woody right there. And I think this is funny. He knows him best as David S. Pumpkins from Saturday Night Live. Tom Hanks.
Wow. I didn't even know that. I didn't even recognize
You don't know David S. Pumpkins?
I don't know. No, unfortunately, I've kind of missed the train.
And he was like, that's David S. Pumpkins. He's old.
Well, he said, listen, you know what? Tom Hanks is old, but he is not Geppetto old.
I'm like, he's not Geppetto old. That's makeup.
Yes,
that's
have
makeup.
made
Yeah.
and a lot of mumbling going on there, Mr. Hanks. Yeah. I don't know who is your vocal coach. A movie that takes place in Italy, and yet there's only one Italian actor. Are we appropriating cultures already here, Disney? Have we learned nothing?
Well, I'm glad that they made the effort with at least one Italian actor.
A Stromboli?
Yeah. I assume that would be him, because that would be terrible if it wasn't, because then we'd be going into stereotypical character. Well,
I was going to say that is, he was hamming it up though.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And he was one of the better parts of this. So this is the Robert Zemeckis. We're coming
bringing him up again the third week in a row.
We are coming off Back to the Future 2 and 3. Robert Zemeckis, and he directed this. And this falls under the live action Disney remakes because this is what we're doing now. We're just taking everything that Disney
spare no titles. They're going to exhaust everything in their, I think, back catalog.
Let's go. Right. Let's go. We know that there's a Lilo and Stitch. D23, they did drop a trailer for Little Mermaid, which actually looks, this actress who is playing Ariel, I'm on board. Snow White,
Peter Pan and Wendy.
Are we getting a Peter Pan? Sandy Duncan's still around? Notoriously, a woman always plays the role on Broadway, correct? Hence the Sandy Duncan and Kathy Rigby.
So so as you said, we're getting a number of these reimaginings, and one of them, I think,
I like that reimagining. I like that reimagining because you can't call the Jon Favreau Lion King a live action. It's CG. There's not a living human in this thing.
And speaking of that, they're doing a prequel to that called Mufasa. So that movie's coming out.
Ooh, say it again.
Mufasa.
Ooh. So Mufasa as the young prince?
I think so, yeah.
Oh, so we're going to see Mufasa's dad?
You're going to see him coming up.
Is he going to be played?
I don't know. This was one of those ones that they had precious little info about. It was just like a title and the logo on screen. Just like that was the same thing with Peter Pan and Wendy. It had the ship flying.
Okay. I don't know. I can't keep up with this stuff. We're not even creating new content anymore. Well, no, we got Strange New Worlds, which actually looks pretty cool.
Yeah, that does. And also, this is not really a rehash of an old movie, but the next movie version of a Disney ride is another attempt at Haunted Mansion, which we mentioned last week as well.
Yeah. And Inside Out. Well, that's Pixar, but it's still under the Disney banner now.
Yeah. Inside Out 2. Mm-hmm. Very excited about that.
So Disney's got a lot of things on their plate.
Yes,
That's not even counting the Marvel and Lucasfilm stuff. They are a behemoth right now. Mm-hmm. They're taking over everything.
So Pinocchio. Now, this was originally set to be a theatrical release, and then the pandemic happened. This was like on the books to happen like as early as 2015.
Really?
I believe, yeah. And then once the pandemic hit, like a lot of things, Disney decided to put this on Disney Plus when it eventually came out. I think when Zemeckis came on board, it was considered again for a theatrical release, but again, it was moved back to Disney Plus eventually. Maybe because somebody actually watched it and thought, maybe.
100, I mean, I don't know if this is accurate. $150 million budget.
Really? I didn't take notes on how much the budget was.
That is monstrous. That is monstro level.
Right.
That's a whale of a budget right there. I guess it went to the animators. I don't know.
Let's begin by saying that Disney has taken the unofficial or official, however you might want to call it, theme song of Pinocchio, and they use this for pretty much everything Disney related.
Yeah. I was going to say, When You Wish Upon a Star is the theme. I mean, not Tinkerbell. Tinkerbell comes from Peter Pan. But yeah, When You Wish Upon a Star is, to me, the unofficial Disney theme.
Yeah, because you hear it at the beginning of every Disney movie. That's what plays behind the logo. Yeah. So, of course, they take the opportunity here because this is Pinocchio. This is the movie where this song comes from. Yeah. So we don't get the new 100 Years logo. We get the same logo that we were used to seeing. But at the end of it, Jiminy Cricket comes floating down Mary Poppins style with his little tiny umbrella. Yeah. And so he is the narrator. And it's a nice little opening because Jiminy Cricket has been kind of reformed, reimagined to look more like Hopper from A Bug's Life.
Yes, that's actually a perfect analogy because, he's got the little, and if you go back, because I mentioned at the end of last week that I was going to watch the animated version, and it's kind of there. He's got that little line that goes across his nose, but it's more like the creases of his face. But I can easily
it's more
see
like a Homer Simpson or Fred Flintstone, like 5 o'clock shadow kind of.
Yeah, correct. But here it's more like it's like a grasshopper hard shell on the top part of his face. So I'm not opposed to his redesign.
And he's voiced by Joseph Gordon-Levitt, which was surprising because I've had no idea while I was watching it who this voice could be. Making an attempt, I think, to approach the original Jiminy's voice, but not quite.
I'm going to tell you, I'm going to share a story with you right now, which is I was clueless because I was listening to a podcast in which they were interviewing Ewan McGregor. And he was talking about voicing Jiminy Cricket, and this trials he had going on with the voice acting and whatever. And so when this movie started, I turned to my wife, who's phenomenal. Like, she wouldn't be able to tell you the actor's name, but she goes, that I know that voice. That's the guy that was in that thing. And sure enough, if you backtrack it enough, and I'm like, tell me who this is. And the more I'm listening to it, I'm like, this doesn't sound like Ewan McGregor at all. He's doing a fantastic job. I think he got rid of that Cockney. And I'm listening, and I finally said, did he get recast? There's no way this is Ewan McGregor. So I Googled it. Sure enough, it's Joseph Gordon-Levitt. And so then I'm like, well, wait a minute. So Ewan McGregor is actually voicing Jiminy Cricket for Guillermo del Toro's version of this movie, which is coming out later this year.
Okay.
So how is it that we're getting 2 Pinocchio movies in the same year? Is it? I guess it's like Winnie the Pooh, where it's now public domain. Well, I mean, it's based on a book.
This is a good question, because we're talking about the new version of the Disney version. So I didn't look into this. I knew that this was coming, but I'm not sure if this is a Disney production that.
Oh no! This looks. It looks more like stop motion, although I don't think it is, and it definitely looks a lot darker.
Of course.
And some of the characters.
Nothing less.
I know. But I'm almost, after seeing what I saw with coming from Del Toro, I'm like, I want to see that movie.
Yeah, well, this is based on a book, The Adventures of Pinocchio.
Yeah, but this
Carlo
is based
Collodi.
on Disney's version of the book.
Yes, it is.
So this is, and I will say, Pinocchio,
which Jiminy Cricket doesn't survive, by the way, in the book. I read this for a college course years ago. It's a very different experience.
He lost his conscience.
Pinocchio is not a very likable character in the book at all.
He's barely likable in this.
Yeah.
I found his performance a little wooden. But yes, that's the kind of jokes you're going to get today, kids. Sorry.
But the internet, let me just say, the opening scenes of this movie, the internet are losing their minds over.
Because
not in a good way. Not in a good way.
Why? Well,
because the accusations are it's self-referential, it's back padding, it's like look at our IP. Because in Geppetto's shop, he makes cuckoo clocks.
But he doesn't sell them. He doesn't
sell them because here's the thing: they're fleshing out the story. This backstory for Geppetto does not exist in the cartoon version of the 1940
Do we need
version.
this? No. I don't even know if we need.
I think that kind of you go there in your head when you think about that Geppetto.
That's part of why I wanted to rewatch the animated version, because I'm like, are you implying that his wife and his kid are both dead, and so now he's creating a fake kid?
Yeah,
to fill that void.
Yep, exactly.
I mean, it's banged over.
There's no question about it. That's what's happening here. That's why he's doing this, and it also shores up the problem that I always had with the cartoon. Is this thing is like a newborn baby almost, and you send him off on his own.
It's Bambi
to go to school. He doesn't even know how to get there.
No, and he gives him a book. Where do you have that book? First of all, oh, that was the dead kid's book. Oh, that's hard. And once he realized, well, wait a minute, if this kid could come back to life, I'm making a wife.
Ooh, that's Pinocchio 2 right there. Bride of Pinocchio, or no, Bride of Geppetto.
Pinocchio 2 Electric Boogaloo.
Yeah. Before Geppetto, or before the Blue Fairy actually brings Pinocchio to life, we get the shot of all the cuckoo clocks on the wall.
I actually thought this was one of the cooler moments.
It was. I didn't find fault with it. I thought it was cool, to freeze
look,
frame.
It's Woody. Yeah. Oh, look, it's I want that Snow White clock.
I would have been happy with just Woody, being the self-referential Tom Hanks reference there. Sure. But nope, you get Donald Duck, you get Jessica and Roger, you get Maleficent with and Sleeping Beauty at Sleeping Beauty's castle.
Dumbo.
That's all. Dumbo. That's a little bit later on. Snow White a little bit later on.
Yeah. Lion King.
So, and you also get a very, very CG Figaro. I'd expect it with Cleo, but you can't have at least a few shots with a real cat.
No. And he doesn't look big. He doesn't look life size. He looks like he's he's undersized.
Because Figaro in the cartoon is a kitten, but still it does look
he's a hefty cat. He's a cat. my wife did point out that Cleo looks like the female fish in that Will Smith shark's tail or a fish's
shark's tail. Yes.
Yeah.
Somebody stops by the shop like after hours that wants to buy a cuckoo clock for his wife, and then you get the story that Geppetto can't sell the clock because he's too attached to them.
So what's he doing for income here?
Yeah.
Nothing.
Well, no, he sells music boxes. He's like, can I interest you in a music box? No.
Oh, okay. I did get Doc Brown vibes with all the clocks though at the opening. I was like, a little Back to the Future going on here.
Yeah. You get everything. You can bring. It's like 7 Shades of Kevin Bacon with you. It's like it should be 7 Shades of Back to the Future. Everything.
We're not too
comes
far
back.
removed from Marty and Doc. Oh no. So you're telling me that people are losing their minds over that they're upset?
They're upset. Yeah, but there's worse things to get upset about with this than the cuckoo clock scene.
But I mean, how many Pixar movies have in jokes with?
But I think the problem is you couldn't even call these Easter eggs. They are just
these are blatant. I guess I don't know. As an animator, I would have a blast doing this stuff. Yeah, that sounds like fun. On paper, Zemeckis is like, hey, why don't we do this? All right, that sounds cool. Let's do it. Oh well.
So this is when Geppetto goes to bed and he wishes on the wishing star. This is what you obviously think that he's wishing because he wants to bring his like a monkey's paw type wish to bring his dead relations back. And at first I thought we weren't going to get a blue fairy because all you see is like a blue beam of light come from the star and ricochet off the photo.
Ka-chow. Yeah.
That's
so she's already tapping into the dead kid's photo.
Yep. And infusing the puppet with the essence, maybe. Cynthia Erivo is playing
has
the
a
blue
beautiful
fairy
voice,
here.
by the way.
Yes.
Yep.
And we've seen her before.
Oh.
Bad Times at the El Royale. We've seen her in.
Oh, get out of here.
Yeah.
That was actually a fun movie.
She was, again, she's the singer in that one.
Oh, that's
you remember?
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't recognize her at all.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's a little punkified. She's not, I like the wings. The wings were very ethereal, almost like jellyfish kind of.
Yeah. And I'm glad that they didn't try to write new song. You can't.
Correct.
You can't do that with this.
No, I think they did change up. She sings When You Wish Upon a Star, right? But no one in the movie actually sings it. It's just a theme song. Or am I wrong?
No.
Did I misremember that?
Jiminy Cricket sings it.
Oh, okay.
Or at least the actor who voices Jiminy Cricket sings it.
But I did like Geppetto actually had to, when he came up with Pinocchio's name, he's like pine, oak, yo, get it? Pine Yokio. And I'm like, do we have that's a stretch? Unless that's really true how he came up with the name.
I don't know. I couldn't tell you that. I
don't know. So anyways.
But I did think it was funny that Geppetto sleeps through this entire thing and then it's the latch closing that wakes him up and he sits bolt upright.
Yeah. Meanwhile, in the animated cartoon, I think Pinocchio goes like he's knocking over crap left and right, wakes everybody up.
So we do get a repeat and it's a really joyous scene. It's one of the most memorable scenes in the animated version where Geppetto realizes that Pinocchio, the puppet, has come to life and he dances around with him, with the string.
Yeah, as a marionette still, yeah.
Yes. So, and I was thinking to myself, again, because, talk about not using a real cat in any of the shots for Figaro. You can't use like an actual puppet that you could just, that Tom Hanks just pull 2 strings and dance around with. Because you could completely tell it's all CG that he's working with there.
And I don't think we've ever heard Tom Hanks sing or seen him dance. Am I wrong in that?
I don't think so.
I don't know. But like I said, some of this performance is a little mumbly. I do think that, like you said, so the very next day, he's now sending Pinocchio off. He needs to go to school. And I'm like, I think you need to go to school, Geppetto, because you're telling this kid that the sun revolves around the earth once a day.
Yeah. The scene, well, before we get there, the blue fairy actually says, to be truly real, he has to pass an ordeal. Well, I'm out already because I'm not passing through any ordeals. So I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry, I don't do ordeals.
Yeah. I never liked the fact that Geppetto has this brand new son who has never experienced the world at all. And he's sending him off on his own into the world.
All right, time for you to have an adventure.
Yeah. Hopefully you'll make it to school because I can't remember.
Hope you don't end up on a milk carton.
In the animated version or not, if the single file train of students goes by, but they do that here.
He does see the school kids and he sends them off with the book and immediately runs into the fox.
Yeah, but I think in the other one, you see in the animated version, you just see the kids running to school, and then Geppetto sends him off to go to school as well with the book and the apple.
In the animated version, he never makes it to school.
No, he never makes it.
Here he gets kicked out of school.
Honest John and the little cat that's hanging out with him, I forget what his name is.
Here's what I found hysterical. So a talking fox is somehow amazed by a talking puppet. It's like, where is this fox coming from? Are there other foxes? Do people like interact? Like Figaro's a cat, but he's a cat. This guy's a cat wearing clothes and talking. He's a street scat cat.
An actor's life for me.
They do make a Chris Pine joke, which I
thought it would have been brilliant because I didn't know it was Keegan-Michael Key that was voicing this.
I didn't realize that's who it was.
If this was actually Chris Pine voicing this guy, that would be really funny. But yeah, you're right. In the animated version, he doesn't even make it to school. They convince him that he wants to be famous before he gets there. But in this one, he interacts with them, and then Jiminy Cricket saves him. And then he makes it to school, but then they kick him out of school. The teacher's like, no wooden boys. Kicks him, literally kicks him out or throws him out onto the pavement.
You know, he doesn't have feelings.
Yeah, I know. All the kids are laughing at him. I think the teacher says, puppets belong in a puppet show. And
nobody really seems to be like, this thing's talking. Like it's possessed. Like somebody burn it. No, let's just kick him out of school. That is someone else's problem now.
Yep. So Honest John is listening to all this because they've followed covertly all the way to school because they want another crack at Pinocchio, and they get it, and they sell. You don't see it happen. It's off screen. You don't see it happen in the animated version either. But they sell him to Stromboli, and the next thing you know, he's in that show doing the "I've Got No Strings."
Number. I got no. Yeah, that's actually one of the better songs.
The bonus feature is the deleted scene with Ultron, who appears in this scene.
I missed that. Yeah. Ultron, no strings.
But yeah, as you say, Stromboli is here, and the actor playing Stromboli doing a very broad job. Giuseppe Battiston playing Stromboli here.
Yeah.
And now this is where we bring in, this is in order to pad out the story, they bring in new characters.
Yeah.
In this case, it's Fabiana, because in the cartoon, you only ever saw Stromboli in this show. He obviously needed puppeteers to puppet all these, all the puppets going on around Pinocchio. Maybe he was doing it by himself, come to think.
I don't know. Well, it's all they're animated. They're all automated,
and I'm sure actual puppeteers are outraged at this.
Right. My one job has been outsourced now.
Yeah,
it's been automated.
But you do see, even though the puppets in the movie are CG, they're supposed to be controlled by all these unseen people up above them, and one of them is this Fabiana, who is disabled, who has braces on one of her legs.
Yeah.
She has something in common with Pinocchio as an outsider. All these puppeteers, you get the sense that they're also kind of imprisoned by Stromboli. And once Pinocchio is thrown into the cage, and let me just tell you that the animated version of Pinocchio is very dark.
Yes.
All these things, because Pinocchio does go through an ordeal, so it's difficult for some kids to watch. And Pinocchio finds this out. Fame and fortune wasn't all that it was cracked up to be by Honest John.
You lied to me.
I love Jiminy's thing. First of all, if somebody calls themselves honest in their name, that usually means that they're not. And he's right. So this scene pretty much goes in tandem with what's in the cartoon, where Pinocchio is thrown into the birdcage and locked in there by Stromboli. And Jiminy finally finds him. And as he's telling fibs, saying, I really wanted to go to school, I wanted nothing to do with this, and his nose is growing and growing and growing, Jiminy's finally able to reach the key by standing on Pinocchio's nose and then releasing him. But no sooner is he out of the carriage and on his way back home, he gets scooped up in a net by Luke Evans, Gaston from our live action Beauty and the Beast. Oh, is that
who that was?
Yeah.
I missed out on that. Because this is where it changes, because I think Honest John sells him to the motorist.
He does.
Who's a really scary guy in the red trench coat looking thing.
Yeah.
Heavy set guy. He was creepy.
So yeah, in the cartoon, Honest John comes back into it, but he does not come back into it here. So Luke Evans just scoops him up in the net, and he puts him in the carriage with all these other kids, and they're on their way to Pleasure Island. And Pinocchio here doesn't, to his credit, doesn't really want to go. But peer pressure is put upon him, and he finally agrees. He relents, and he goes to Pleasure Island.
Well, he doesn't really. Here's my problem with Jiminy Cricket, who's supposed to be this kid's conscience. Like, he's always like late to the show. Like, he's always chasing after him. And it's like, can you give this kid some advice? Because he's making some bad choices here. Meanwhile, Geppetto's like, wait, it's 10 o'clock at night. This kid should have been home by now.
And now they do try to explain why Geppetto would not go with him, because he's never left his house since his wife
What is he,
died,
Grandpa Joe?
Yeah. And he's hesitant to leave to look for Pinocchio.
But when he does go, he takes the cat and the goldfish.
Yep.
Why are you taking them? That fish is going to just wear you down. Although when they were on the ocean, at least you could have drank the fish water.
But yeah, so we get Pleasure Island, the movies, the live action movies version of Pleasure Island.
I will say the original Pleasure Island, as a kid watching this movie, and I'm pretty sure I have this on Blu-ray and we've watched it with the kids. I did when I rewatched it. I watched it just on Disney Plus. But Pleasure Island is a nightmare. I mean, as a kid, you're like, wow, look at this. This is crazy. And the one thing I noticed in the original animated version is there is a warning that there is tobacco use.
Yes.
But they make no point of pointing out the fact that these kids are drinking beer. There's no alcohol abuse. Now, that's fine. It's got to worry about the tobacco.
But in this version, it's established that it's root beer that they're drinking.
They did go out of their way to say it was root beer, but it's a watered down.
It's also
Pleasure
equal
Island.
Opportunity. It's an equal opportunity Pleasure Island because it's boys and girls this time. It was only boys in the animated version.
Yeah, I will say, because I had an aha moment. I bring up the fact that in the 90s, 96, my wife took me to Disney for the first time, and Pleasure Island was an adult area.
Yes. Yep.
And Fireworks was a restaurant that had phenomenal chicken wings. That's the one thing we took away. It said, do you remember Pleasure Island? The first thing my wife says, those wings. I'm like, yeah, okay. You're a foodie. That's why I love you.
Pleasure Island, now known as Disney Springs.
Is that what that is? Yeah.
Yep.
But it was a separate, right. And there was like a nightclub. We went to the comedy club and whatever. Yeah, Pleasure Island.
And there was a big neon sign of Jessica Rabbit, I believe, on Pleasure Island, which is no longer there.
That's right. Yes. Yeah. She may or may not show up in the Pleasure Island version of artificial intelligence, by the way. There's some racy stuff going on there.
But we also are introduced to Lampwick, Pinocchio's no good, quote unquote.
Oh, I never liked this kid. Never liked him one bit. No.
And he is just a jerk. Pinocchio says, oh, I can't destroy these clocks. They remind me of my dad's clocks. Yeah. And he's like, you jerk, just destroy the clocks.
Again, this is watered down compared to the 1940 animated version,
and it is so CGI, like that over the top when the boat goes down that candy mountain.
Oh, the kids are sliding down the sugar mountain.
This is like Polar Express CGI territory.
Yeah, come on, we're 2022 right now.
Yeah, and I did notice, however, a nice touch of foreshadowing that the coach that Luke Evans is driving is pulled by donkeys. So it is the kids that he's already changed.
Hint.
But I did get a crack a smile at some of the names of some of the buildings in Pleasure Island. Contempt Corner, I think, was one. The lift shop, it exists to shoplift from. Clock Stoppers is where they destroy all the clocks. When Pinocchio goes back home, all the clocks are gone. Did he sell the clocks
to what?
To Luke Evans so the kids could just destroy them?
Interesting.
So there's that dark turn. Eventually the night wears on, and just like in the cartoon, you see Pinocchio and Lampwick in the pool hall. And Pinocchio says, why can't I hear the other kids anymore? Don't worry about it. They're somewhere. We see the smoke monsters from Lost or whatever grabbing the kids as they turn
I don't remember
donkeys.
these guys at all, but they are in the cartoon.
They are okay.
Yeah. They're loading the donkeys into the cages.
Wow.
I was like, wow, I don't remember those at all. But yeah, you're right. It is a smoke monster.
I don't know if it's Lampwick in the cartoon, but there's this one donkey that's like, I want my mommy.
And he gets separated. He can talk. Yeah. He can talk, separate. They do that in the animated as well.
Yeah.
They put them in a separate pen, the ones that can still talk. What do they do with them? What do they do with them?
But I'm thinking to myself, what an elaborate ruse that they have with Pleasure Island here. I'm like, you could make more money charging admission to this place
right,
than by selling the donkeys.
But how are they actually turning into donkeys? Is it the cigar?
I don't know.
But it is a horrific, like any little kid seeing this would be influenced to be like, I am never touching beer. I am never touching the cigar, and I am never playing pool.
So we see Lampwick turn into a full-fledged donkey and taken.
You gas like a donkey.
Pinocchio only manages the ears in this one, but in the cartoon, he gets the tail.
I think he does get a tail, yeah.
But he escapes and he's chased by Luke Evans and the Smoke Monsters. And with Jiminy's help, he escapes and then jumps off the cliff. But in the cartoon, you get that great scene of him walking on the ocean floor with Jiminy.
Yeah.
And you don't see that here. He just swims to shore. And that's where you find out from the seagull, right from the Little Mermaid, right?
So this is Sophia. Sophia, the mermaid?
Who was, not a character from the animated version, who tells them that Geppetto has left because Geppetto has found out that he's gone to Pleasure Island.
Where did Geppetto think this kid went that he's now on a boat somewhere? Pinocchio,
I think he's looking for Pleasure Island. I don't know if he knows where it is.
Apparently he hasn't been outside much. He's like, there's not a map in town.
Stromboli comes back at one point, but it's not Stromboli because Fabiana had said to Pinocchio, we're planning at the next town to take over Stromboli's act and open up shop for ourselves. And they have done. Stromboli is in jail. So at least you get that little satisfaction. You never get that in the cartoon. But Fabiana gives the invitation out there. You could come with us and be part of our act from this point on. Nope. He turns down fame and fortune this time to look for his father. And that's when
he's already been burnt once before. Yeah. He's like, that's not good.
So that's when the donkey parts disappear. So now he's a puppet again.
This is where it goes off the rails.
I will admit that it was funny when Pinocchio tells Geppetto everything that happened to him. And Geppetto says, what? You did all that in one day?
I know. I've done nothing but walk around with the CG cat and fish. That's all I've done. Yelling Pinocchio.
He did quite a bit too. He managed to sell all of his clocks in one shot and close up his shop and then get a boat and then go out to sea in one day.
It took all those clocks to buy a boat.
But this is where we get the money shot. So, Jeff, you had expressed concerns about this last week.
Yeah, and I'm still concerned.
Monstro, the whale.
Monstro has been turned into a buck-toothed humpback with tentacles. Yeah,
with tentacles. So he's like an H.P. Lovecraft.
He's more. Yeah, he is more of a sea monster than
a whale.
Yeah, but we don't get enough of him one way or the other to care. Yeah, they get eaten pretty quick. They get out pretty quick
because they've made it. And this doesn't really factor into the cartoon either. They already set up that Pinocchio can move his feet really fast because Geppetto takes advantage of this to clean his floor at the beginning. You see it happen while he's dancing at Stromboli's and he sets a fire by accident. Right. So now you're like, now he can do it to get himself out of Monstro to build fire.
So in the animation, because I never made it all the way through the movie the second time here, is that how they escape from Monstro?
I think they just light a fire. I think they just have a match.
And he sneezes them out and then they just ride the wave.
And that's what happens here as well. Yeah. And you also get Monstro crunching against the mountain. So they kept that. But it's Pinocchio that's at death's door in the animated version and not Geppetto. And that's what is the big change to the ending because they actually get Pinocchio back home. The Blue Fairy comes back and makes Pinocchio a real boy.
Right, because when you said, as far as he's got to go through an ordeal, she said you need to be brave, you need to be truthful, and you need to be unselfish. So what part of unselfish did he actually do?
Well, he turned down fame and fortune the second time to go look for Geppetto, right? That's unselfish.
Yes.
Yeah, you could make an argument. You could make the argument.
Or I guess he could have offered up his own life in exchange for Geppetto's, since Geppetto was laying there on the beach dead. I don't know. It's a little ambiguous, this ending, because Jiminy Cricket implies that maybe he does become a real boy. And you kind of see his legs turn
when they're walking
away.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Wouldn't wood warp in the water?
In his heart, he's as real as any real boy could be. So I'm like, well, is he real or is he not? Let me know. In the cartoon, he's real. The blue fairy comes and makes him real. But in this one, you don't see her again from the opening scene.
Plus, it's like you already have feelings. You already can walk and talk. Like, what else do you need to be quote unquote real? You know, you could probably chop a leg off and you could still get around. If you're real, that's going to dampen your day.
And what does he eat? Because Geppetto says to him in the beginning, "You'll be home for dinner. You know, we're going to have this for dinner."
I know he had a great meal. He had a beautiful meal waiting for him. Figaro never got to eat that fish, by the way. Not happy at all.
So, yeah, and it's not the blue fairy that wakes up Geppetto. It's Pinocchio's tear that does. And
right, so he cries. So he's a real boy.
He hums "When You Wish Upon a Star."
R.I.P. I recognize that. I don't know. Jimmy let me down big time because he really just kind of spent the whole movie chasing after Pinocchio. Not a lot of advice he was throwing out there. This is disappointing. I was very disappointed with this.
I was as well.
It's missing heart. There's no heart whatsoever in this. You don't care. I mean, and we know Zemeckis, you know, you brought up Polar Express, but he got more emotion out of those dead-eyed doll characters. You cared about that stupid kid because he didn't believe in Christmas. He believed enough that Santa left him a gift when he got back home. Something is completely missing from this movie. I mean, all the elements are there. Yeah. Everything is there. I mean,
Tom Hanks is there.
I know. And Tom Hanks does no wrong in my eyes. I really love that man. He doesn't bring anything to this. I don't know. The kid who did the voice of Pinocchio, I thought he did a good job. You know, we mentioned a blue fairy, but like you said, she does not come back into the story.
Yeah.
He's got to learn a lesson. It was way too ambiguous. Plus they're now left on the beach somewhere. And the cave was blue. There was like a blue glow coming from the cave. So you're like, well, what's in there? Maybe that's the blue fairy waiting for them. I don't know. It just did not work.
The approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes is 29%.
Ouch.
Some of these reviews are pretty merciless. The Empire magazine, though not without charm and some splendid CGI. What?
I don't know about that.
This scattershot grab bag of good intentions results in a bit of an emotional flatline. This puppet will not pull on your heartstrings.
Good intentions, I think, is a perfect way to...
I don't know if the Disney version of this just would never work in live action. I don't want to say that, but...
I don't know. I mean...
Maybe you have to keep the story, dark. Maybe Del Toro's will be an out of the park with us.
I think so, because it probably is going to be a departure from what this is. You're probably leaning more into, Grimm's fairy tale.
And hopefully some practical effects.
Yeah, I mean, Pinocchio looks like Pinocchio from the animated movie, but he's not real enough. He looks like he's a cartoon CGI character. He is not. We already talked about how fake the cat looked. It's one of your main characters. So, yeah, disappointed.
At various points throughout this, I was losing interest. I thought it was just too long as well. Like
it's just under 2 hours.
It's bumping up to 2 hours. And I think they just felt the need to pad it out with more characters that they didn't necessarily need to tell the story. And, giving Geppetto that backstory as well. A lot of unnecessary stuff, I think. I don't want to go as far as saying that the movie is unnecessary because maybe kids might not have been exposed to Pinocchio.
Yeah, well, like I said, I feel like the Pleasure Island treatment here is a lighter tone compared to the actual animation. Yeah. So, as a kid, that can be a little traumatizing. There's probably a parent out there that put their hands over the kid's eyes watching that Pleasure Island scene.
Yeah. Those are pretty rough in the animated version. But it was
unflinching.
I would agree with the Empire magazine. It was kind of heartless. It was empty. No
heart. Yeah. Yep. Sorry. Sad to say.
Yeah, I hate to give low buckets. I hate to give low buckets. But I wasn't really feeling this, and I'm gonna go out of 5 buckets. I think I would give it 2.
Oh, I went 2.5. So I was a little. I got to give the animators a little credit, but I didn't like Monstro. I thought you did Monstro a huge disservice, and I get it because in the original, he's just a sperm whale. but he's a monster black sperm whale, and he is freaking scary.
Yeah.
This thing I didn't feel, I mean, we literally got an Empire Strikes Back Millennium Falcon coming out of the asteroid worm mouth shot, as the jaws are slowly lowering. And
was it just for the sake of change that they wanted to change Monstro, I wonder?
Well, and then if you're going to change him, then change him. Then make him a true sea monster. Don't half-ass it. Sorry, Mr. Zemeckis.
Sorry.
Maybe you should make Back to the Future 4.
From Zemeckis, we're going to move to another name highly associated with the Back to the Future films, Steven Spielberg.
We can't get away from this.
Can't get away.
It's Back to the Future month.
So let's go to the concession stand, and we'll be back with AI, artificial intelligence.
It was just referred to as AI, and then they were afraid that people would read it as A1, and they didn't want it.
Like A1 steak sauce?
Like it was a steak sauce, yeah.
Oh, so that's making me hungry.
So they had to add the artificial intelligence.
Okay. So maybe they'll have some of that at the concession stand.
I'll have a big juicy steak on a stick with some A1 sauce.
Let's go and come back.
All right, let's go.
All right.
Best popcorn in town is Manley's High Pop in regular or jumbo cartons. Here's why. Take the tastiest, tenderest, scientifically grown popcorn, add pure, delicious seasoning and specially prepared salt. Then let the famous Manley machine work its magic on Manley popcorn, America's favorite popcorn. Crisp, savory, wonderful. Visit our concession stand now for Manley's High Pop. Show starts in 1 minute.
All right, we're back, and we are talking Steven Spielberg's artificial intelligence. And
wow.
in an alternate reality, we could be saying Stanley Kubrick's artificial intelligence, but it did not turn out that way. This is a very fascinating backstory that Kubrick, I guess, was working on this almost since the short story came out in 1969.
Super Toys Last All Summer Long. I wish that was the title of this movie. Yeah. I would probably be a little more inclined to want to go see it. I did see this in the theater. I'm assuming you saw this in the theater.
I did not see this in the theater.
You did not see this in the theater.
I did not see this in the theater.
This was when my daughter was born in 2000. So 2001, I was doing everything in my power to get out of the house whenever possible, being a stay-home dad for the first year and a half. I saw this in the theater with my sister-in-law. So I do remember. Until this screening, I don't think I've seen it since.
Yeah, I've only seen it the one time when it came out on home video, but I was shocked looking at this again that it was 2001. I'm like, this is that old?
No, I know, it's crazy, right? It's 21 years old. Haley Joel Osment looks like he's grandfather.
But I guess it makes sense because he was coming off The Sixth Sense, which was a couple of years previous. 99. Yeah.
99. Yeah. The kid was at the height.
It's like the Macaulay Culkin syndrome, It's like you got to get those childhood years. You got to take advantage as much as you can.
Yeah. And the kid does a phenomenal job with what he has to work with, but we'll get into it.
Yeah. Yes,
so based on a short story, Brian Aldiss, I had no clue it came out that was that old.
That long ago. Yeah. Well, Kubrick did. He took notice.
69. That's ahead of the curve if you're talking about artificial intelligence.
Yeah. So Kubrick was developing this with Aldiss because Aldiss was on board with Kubrick and doing treatments, right? But Kubrick hired him to do the screenplay. And so they were developing it. And from what I understand, Kubrick never thought that the technology, the filmmaking, special effects technology was good enough for him to actually embark on it.
He would have been correct. This would be a completely different movie if it came out in the 70s.
And the reason being is that he didn't think that a child actor could pull off this role, that he actually wanted either, I don't know, a robot or a computer generated character.
Danny Bonaducci was at the top of his game back then. Why? No, not the first choice.
Not the first choice. No, I didn't see his name in all of my research on this.
There's a lot of big names in this. Most of them are voiceover actors, but I had no clue until I started digging into this. So did Kubrick? Did he want to direct this?
He did.
No, he did
for a certain amount of time. He did, and then I think he relented. Maybe it was Jurassic Park that.
No,
maybe something to do with that. Because at some point during the 90s, he said, "Look," he went to Spielberg and said, "Listen, I'll produce this if you direct it.
Yeah. So Spielberg gets credit for all those dinosaurs that the ILM created.
But here's the thing is that, before that, I did read that the following year after Jurassic Park, the ILM did some previs for Kubrick, which he wasn't happy with.
Oh, all right. I take it back.
Well, yeah,
But Spielberg gets screenwriter credit on this.
A lot of the writers that were involved, and Aldous was the first writer that was involved. And then there were a few others after him. One by the name of Ian Watson.
Yep. Yeah, his name is.
Did you read this quote from Aldous? Because Kubrick wasn't happy with the work that Aldous was giving him. At some point, the
actual writer of the story.
The actual writer of the story.
All right, I want you to take your story and just convert it into visual movie magic. And he's like, yeah, this is not what I want.
I think this transpired like at least 10 years after they started working on it together.
There's a point where you just give up. You're just you know what? 10 years, I'm done.
But Kubrick fired him. And
that's horrible.
And got another writer by the name of Ian Watson. And the quote that I read from Aldous, not only did the bastard fire me, he hired my enemy instead.
Oh no. They're like arch nemesis. Oh no. I'm going to take everything Aldous did. I'm going to gut it. We're going to make you a real. This is like Cobra Kai back. So
Aldous, not a fan of Stanley Kubrick.
All right, well, it doesn't matter because I guess at some point Spielberg took this over.
But getting back to that, I did. Yeah. My point was Watson and some of the other writers commented on the final version, and they said that what Spielberg did wasn't, leagues away from what they were doing. So
was not. Well, you can't put 10 years worth of work into it. And this happens all the time where, you get multiple people doing passes on scripts and, the next guy comes in and he may take 10% of what the guy wrote before him. So, yeah, technically I should still get credit. So, but I misremembered this story altogether because I thought that this was half filmed when Kubrick died and then Spielberg came in and finished it. And that is not the case at all.
No, not the case at all.
There were multiple scripts. There was story ideas. There were conceptual paintings, stuff like that were handed off to Spielberg and Kubrick handpicked Spielberg to do this.
Yeah.
Okay. We're all on the same page.
The final product is touted as an Amblin Stanley Kubrick production.
But it has a DreamWorks opening logo.
Yes, it does.
Is this one of our first DreamWorks movies?
I wouldn't think so. 200 episodes in.
I don't know. The first time I saw that trailer, I'm like, wow, I have not seen this because I don't think DreamWorks even exists anymore, does it?
No, I think they still do.
Katzenberg and
like Puss in Boots and Shrek and stuff like that.
Well, that's like the animated end of it.
Yeah.
Peacemaker, 97 was the first official DreamWorks movie. So they were pretty much in their infancy during this 2001. I digress.
So this is like a spiritual companion to WALL-E, I think, this movie.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, it's obviously very much a Pinocchio
and that as well. But
that's a little more on the nose, no pun intended.
Completely, because they make no bones about it. They're making the parallels to Pinocchio with themselves, or I should say Spielberg is in this film.
But are you talking as far as WALL-E goes? You're talking about the opening credits,
the global warming.
This is like right out of today's headlines.
Yeah.
So 21 years ago, this was still sci-fi fantasy. And now we are living this crap. You're like, oh, did I actually just accidentally turn on Fox News here? Like, what is going on? Oh, no, I'm sorry. They're deniers. They don't believe any of this stuff. But global warming, rising seas, all of what's coastal cities have been flooded. New York City, Venice, Amsterdam, third world countries are starving. So what do? We create AIs. For what purpose? This is where I'm a little
to take our minds off of it.
I like what I don't know. Like
at least in Planet of the Apes, they established that we trained the monkeys so they could be our servants,
right?
But and then is that the case here?
I don't know, because with all the global warming and the rising, like you're going to lose millions of people. So the few people that are left, it's like, oh, let's just create robots so that we don't have to do any work. I don't know. It is kind of a weird setup.
We're introduced to Alan Hobby, who is played by William Hurt. And what's the name of the corporation?
Cybertronics, which I think is a transformer, but
Brendan Gleeson a little later as the underground robot fighter.
The coachman?
Like
if we want to go to Pinocchio parallels,
the coachman, he names off 10 different corporations before he even gets to William Hurt's.
Cyber. I don't know. Apparently it doesn't take much to create a robot though, because this cuts like 20 months later. And look how we perfected him.
Yeah. Well, in the beginning, William Hurt is, talking to, I don't know, reporters or his backers or
it
students.
Seems like
or
there was
what?
A mix, right? There were students / it was like a press conference or something.
That he wants to build a robot that can love, a child that will imprint on a couple, a robot that can dream and love. It's all starry-eyed, pie in the sky stuff. But nobody in the room raises the question, well, what happens when the couple gets old and dies and the robot is left there by itself?
Yeah, because I guess the real conundrum is, can you find a human that will love it back? So this is like one hell of a science experiment. Let's create this robot and then we'll send it out into the world and see if anybody loves it.
Yep. And if nobody does, then we'll destroy it. Bring it back, return it, and we'll destroy it.
Did they not see Teddy Ruxpin? Everybody loved him. Took very little effort.
So yeah, as you said, 20 months later, boom, there it is. Success. Yeah. They make a kid.
Success.
Yeah.
And they just hand it off to this guy who works there. He doesn't really seem to be a higher up either.
And you know what? Before we leave the press conference or whatever it is, William Hurt, there is a mecha there, a woman putting makeup on, and as a demonstration, he asks her to stand up and he whispers in her ear, undress. And she starts to, and then he says, okay, that's enough. For what purpose?
Well, we see later, Gigolo Joe, he becomes a sex robot.
So he asks her to undress and doesn't mention it to the crowd. He whispers it to her. And then he says, okay, you can stop now. Like the people in the room, what's happening here?
What's she doing? What does she do? She's malfunctioning.
Yeah.
Yeah. And again, for early 2000, it's a pretty impressive visual effect when her face opens up.
That was seamless.
And he pops out
the
little cord chip in her forehead.
Yeah.
No, that's really nice stuff. So kudos to Kubrick for sitting on this for 20 years until the technology was there. Because visually, there's a lot of really neat stuff going on here.
Yeah. So we're introduced to this couple, Monica and Henry.
Yeah.
Who have a child on life support.
Martin.
And I guess Henry works for William Hurt's corporation. And he shows up home one day. You're going to kill me. You're going to kill me. I brought something home.
Did you bring a puppy?
Now, okay. I had major problems with this when I first saw it. And, it came flooding back.
It's still there.
Still bugging me with this. Okay. This is like, I assume, the prototype, this David.
Right. Probably worth billions of dollars.
They don't accompany it home with him like a social worker of some kind to keep an eye on the company's investment or somebody checking in on them.
Right. Because the whole point of creating this thing is for this experiment to find out if this family, especially the mother, once she imprints herself to this thing, would love it back. It's a science experiment that nobody is paying attention to.
No, and it seems the only reason that they picked him is like he won Employee of the Month or something. I don't know.
Well, I guess they felt bad because his kid was in cryo freeze.
And that as well. But he's a good employee. He does his job. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's give him this robot.
And you would think they'd have to go through all kinds of psychological evaluations and anything like that. Not just, the father, convince your wife that this is a good idea. And that's basically all it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And at one point he's like, can he eat? It's like, did you not read the manual? Like this thing, this guy's a jerk because he brings it home and he just dumps it on the wife.
And he forces her because I'm going to get in trouble if I don't accept this.
Right. But like you said, it's like no deposit, no return.
Yeah.
There's no warranty on this thing either, apparently. But yeah, there's no, all they get was this little stupid sheet of paper that tells, it's like an IKEA put together.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, all right, you just say these words and it'll imprint himself and then it'll forever love you.
Yeah.
And all you got to do is love it back. Let us know how that goes in 20 years.
Yeah. Say these words and it's irreversible. You can't turn it off.
What if she accidentally said the wrong word?
I know.
And it just becomes like a homicidal maniac.
So there's no way to reuse this. No wonder why the world is underwater with global warming, is because there's absolutely no recycle ethos whatsoever in this society.
Well, no, those damaged mechas were recycling old parts.
They were, but they're not even the humans. You know, they're the one.
Well, that's also why they inherited the world and we're gone by the end of this movie. Yeah, it goes back, you set up this whole world. It's an ecological disaster. So to what ends are these robots being used for?
As you mentioned, we're talking about the mecha teddy bear, Teddy. So they already have a robot in the house that seems to be sentient and
they love him.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you wouldn't have kept them around. I mean, it's Martin's little teddy bear, but they gave it to David. Go play with this. The one thing I will say, especially early on in these scenes, Spielberg's doing a lot with mirrors and fractured images and reflections. Like all the doors almost have like a corrugated glass. So you're getting these multiple cuts of a person or a character. And I wasn't really sure. It looks very cool, but I'm not really sure where he was trying to go with that. And then it just disappears somewhere in the movie. If you want to, throw a mirror up to humanity and that we're putting all our hopes and dreams into this robot kind of a thing, but it really doesn't pay off. And like you said, the premise is dicey at best because, this woman, she's still mourning the fact that her kid, who's not dead, by the way, he's like in cryo freeze. And then so we're just going to replace him. Let's just give you a new kid. So she wants nothing to do with this. He's really freaking creepy, chasing her around the house and whatnot. But when she finally warms up and actually imprints herself, then he immediately calls her mommy. And then she warms up and you're like, oh, okay. And the next thing you know, Martin wakes up.
Yeah. And Martin is a jerk, by the way.
So the first time I saw this movie, I thought the same thing. This kid is a nightmare. He's an only child, and I'm not saying that all single kids who don't have siblings is a jerk, but you just woke up and found out that your parents replaced you. Yeah, honey, you were sleeping a little too long, and we got things to do, so we just got a new kid. This is like the Lotso syndrome in Toy Story 3. He gets thrown away, he makes his way back home, and there's another Lotso there.
This is what I'm talking about, Cybertronics. All this should have been considered. Okay, the kid's not dead, so there could be heavy complications down the line.
How do we deal with this? Don't worry. That's on them now. Let them figure it out. They imprinted the kid. Yeah. But you're right. They never once show up to see what's going on with this kid, how he's progressing. And his actions are just completely taken out of context. You throw out these ideas that, the Three's Company scenario that, it's a misunderstanding, in the scene where he's trying to cut his mom's hair. Because at this point, he's imprinted with Monica and he needs to have her love him back. So he's doing what he doesn't understand. He's a robot. He doesn't understand how to elicit love. Oh, no, it was Martin that convinced him to cut his mom's hair. So, of course, he creepily sneaks into the bedroom at night and goes to cut her hair. They freak out. Did
Martin know that she was going to wake up? If he did it and brought the hair back to Martin, I guess she didn't wake up. I'll have to think of something else now.
Right. I don't know. Yeah, I think that Martin felt that he wanted this kid to get in trouble to go away.
But talk about Danny Bonaducci. He did the same thing on The Partridge Family.
Did he? Did he cut his mom's hair?
No, he cut Keith's hair because he wanted to sell it. Because all the girls loved him.
Holy crap, I don't remember that episode.
He snuck into Keith's room when he was asleep and he cut his hair.
That's pretty smart.
Yeah.
He was always like scheming.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think Reuben Kincaid
I think maybe Bonaducci could have done this in the 70s.
Yeah. And so Teddy's kind of hanging out with this guy at this point because no one else wants to, like you said, Martin's a jerk to him. And they take him out on a boat. And I'm like, is that a smart move to take a robot out on a boat? Like the dad didn't even know if he could eat.
Yeah, I know.
He's sitting at the table watching them gavone food down, and they put a plate in front of him. They put a plate in a cup. They actually set his place, put him in his room, send him out. All right, you don't go plug him into the wall because he needs to be recharged.
Yeah, and that's the only time you see anybody from Cybertronics come is to fix him after he's eaten.
Right. Yeah, and it wasn't even like they rushed him to the hospital. They came there. So the whole family's witness to
But talk about Teddy. This is just more evidence against Martin that he's a jerk, is that he's abusive to Teddy as well. Like, I think he grabs Teddy at one point upside down. No, Martin, please.
Yes, right. You're just a stupid toy. They have the pool party. Was it Martin's birthday?
Yep.
Yeah, because David actually makes him a present. But all of his friends, that's him. And they immediately go into like hate crimes. We're Orga, you're a Mecca. And it's like, as a kid, you're just disillusioned with the fact that these things are out there, not impressed or blown away at the technology. The only thing they want to know is, did he have the damage avoidance system? If I cut you arm, will you like flinch? And of course, then it gets misconstrued because they get in a fight and he ends up over in the pool. And of course, they save Martin and poor David sitting at the bottom of the pool, contemplating all that went on, going, why did I do this?
And so this leads to Mom dropping him off in the woods.
Yeah, again, a multi-billion-dollar robot that you're entrusted with. I can't deal with this. This is like a puppy. Your dog had a litter of puppies and you can't find anybody to take it. So you take them out in the woods and you dump them on the side of the road and hope like hell that they either become coy dogs out in the wilderness or somebody picks them up.
Now, she was pretty close, I think, to Cybertronics, because
she was right there.
She passed the sign before she drops them off in the woods and, tells them, stay away from people, just hang around with Mecca and you'll be fine.
Yeah. And here's Teddy to keep you company.
Yep. And drives off. I think he'd be better off if he was destroyed at this point.
Yeah, no. But wouldn't Martin be like, what happened to Teddy? Where's Teddy? And we never see this family again.
No, except, not in its its real form. Yeah.
No, exactly. No, for all intents and purposes, they have abandoned this thing and they don't give two about what happened to it.
No. And for the rest of the movie, he's trying to find them again, or trying to find his mother
he's imprinted. Again. This is like a baby bird falling out of a nest. Mama, I want to go. Are you my mama? There was actually a book I used to read my kids. Are you my mama? And he would just go around all these different animals asking if you were my mama. No, Go away. Get away. That's what this story is. I do like the fact that there's a lot of Hawaiian shirts in the future. So I have a promising... I got a closet full of them.
Yes, you do.
I'm good to go. Global warming, who cares? I got a Hawaiian shirt.
So this leads to that scene that you alluded to previous, where because he's so close to Cybertronics, a truck comes out and just dumps old mecha parts in the woods
outside the facility.
Like, you want your customers driving by piles of garbage on your beautiful grounds? The dump truck drives away. All these other mechas come out of the woodwork, come out of the woods from wherever they were, and start scavenging through this thing, for extra parts or eyes or arms or stuff that they're missing.
Yeah. And this is probably, when Kubrick got to this concept, he was like, it's no way that we can do this convincingly. And it is very impressive because there are robots that are missing half a head. They still have realistic faces, but the whole back of their head is exposed. And I did read that they used a fair amount of amputees during this scene, people without arms or without legs to play these robots. And it is horrific and impressive at the same time.
Yeah.
Because you're right. They are scavenging, looking for parts to make them whole. Do all these people want to be real?
I would assume so.
Or are they just, so they're all abandoned as well?
The case of Gigolo Joe, because he comes into it now. Yeah. Played by Jude Law.
Who doesn't age, by the way.
No.
I know that he's covered in plastic. He's made to look plastic. But if you see him now, he really doesn't look anything.
Well, no, that hairline is a few inches back, I would think. He's got a widow's peak going on now that didn't exist.
I think that's part of his charm.
Yeah. Gigolo Joe, Jude Law, he is, as his name would suggest, a gigolo. So
he's a sex robot, which this is wild.
And the first scene where he introduced to him, he's got a customer.
A customer
who is afraid of what he's packing.
I would be afraid too. Go to my Yelp page. I got like 5 stars. People are pretty happy with what I got going on here.
Joe is, he's very pleased with himself and he's very popular. So he goes to his next John.
She's a Jane.
He goes to his next Jane, finds that her jealous husband has killed her.
Okay. I did not understand this. because it's Ernie Colantoni, who shows up for like 1 minute, but he murders her, brags about it in front of Joe, and then frames him for it.
Yep.
Was he upset because she was having sex with him?
I think so. I can only assume.
Like if you came home and found your wife with a vibrator, would you kill her and then frame the vibrator? Like that's basically what this is.
Well, apparently the human relationship with Mecca is very fraught and confusing. So,
well, they built an entire city around it. So somebody's making money doing this.
But regardless, this is what brings Joe into contact with David. Now, the character of Joe is bizarre.
Was this John?
No, well, Joe is now on the run from the police because they think that he's a murderer. And so he runs into the woods and almost immediately in the next scene comes across David. So now they're together. And they never really establish a relationship, the two of them. He's just, bringing David to wherever he wants to go.
Right. They're just like a hanger on now.
Yeah. So the bear is really the Jiminy Cricket.
Yes, correct. Absolutely.
Of this. But what is Joe? He's not really, he's just a means to get David from point A to point B. And that's pretty much it. That's really all he's there for.
But like you said, this is where the raid comes in, the Brendan Gleeson. He's like in this hot air balloon thing, which is pretty cool.
That looks like the moon, but is his activities illegal? Because this is not inconspicuous.
It's pretty right. Yeah, because they're rounding up these things and taking them to this flesh fair.
Oh, look, it's a full moon tonight, honey. Hey, that's pretty low and it's moving pretty fast. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a UAP. Look out. This is pretty wild. This is Thunderdome.
It is.
Basically.
It is.
Why they call it a flesh fair? Because these things don't have flesh. They're
now, isn't this a show on the Sci-Fi Network? What do they know? Really? BattleBots. Yeah.
BattleBots. Again, ahead of the curve. Kubrick ahead of the curve. I don't know. The one thing we were talking about this whole, what's really was Kubrick's, what was Ian Watson's, and what is Spielberg's. And from what I understand, that Spielberg brought this concept into this story to make it darker. This idea that people are paying money as sport to watch these things get destroyed and torn apart.
Right. Because the Brendan Gleeson character is calling this, quote unquote, a celebration of life, because he is capitalizing on the fact that humanity is a little bit put aback by these robots being so prevalent. Because I think it's Joe that explains that they made so many of us that now we outnumber them. So humanity is not enamored with these robots anymore.
And that does play into the end of this movie, because you're right. His quote is exactly what you said. Something along the line that, they made us too smart, too quick, and too many. We are suffering for the mistakes they made, because when the end comes, all that will be left is us. But humanity is not doing itself any favors, because like you said, they're not dealing or addressing the global warming crap. If anything, they just keep dumping these parts into the woods. But this is also where we get Chris Rock as the mecha getting shot out of the cannon.
They almost got Seinfeld to do that part as well.
What? You gonna throw me in a rocket? What's up with these parts? But why wouldn't they put Teddy out there? Like if you're gonna cheer on these robots who are defenseless being destroyed and torn apart, then put the teddy bear out there. No, they throw him into Lost and Found. Anybody lose a teddy bear? That does not look like the crowd that has a teddy bear.
No.
A sentient teddy bear at that.
But the coachman, Brendan Gleeson, finds David in the cage because nobody's aware that there's a kid robot in the cage until a little girl sees him, like the daughter of one of the workers. What's that little girl doing there?
Yeah. Why would you bring your kids to this event?
Yep. It's bring your kid to work day, right? That's why she's there.
Daddy. Yeah. Daddy's working.
And Daddy seems concerned about the child robot. He doesn't care about anybody else, any other robots in there. Yeah.
Or his own kid. He's like, what do you mean there's a kid in there? Like you said, David's a prototype because all these robots are adults. We don't see other robot kids. It's not like Small Wonder where you got these little juvenile robots. So David will never grow up. Whatever you build this robot at whatever age, that's the age it stays, unless you replace it.
Yeah, because at first the guy thinks that it's a real kid that's in the cage by accident. Yeah.
Why wouldn't you? Yeah.
But then again, later, when David goes to the secret Cybertronic headquarters in drowned Manhattan, he sees that they were mass marketing these things. So
yeah, this is another Toy Story reference. This is like that's straight up Buzz realizing he's a toy that came out of a box. I guess I'm not so special after all.
But this plays into David's escape because Brendan Gleeson sees this as an opportunity. Oh, look what they've wrought now. This is golden that I have this kid. We're going to pull him apart and use it as a symbol that they shouldn't be messing with this.
This whole idea is just a mass rally against corporations. How dare they make these things?
Yes. So Brendan Gleeson thinks that the crowd will be on his side, and he ties David up to do some damage to him.
David's like, don't kill me. And they're like, oh, whoa, no, whoa.
So the crowd turns against him. Seeing David plead for his life strikes a chord within them. So then they start throwing. It's a classic. They're throwing tomatoes and
Who brings a tomato to a robot fight? There's a vendor out there with a little box, just like the cigarettes. Tomatoes, cabbage heads. Yeah, but it is mob mentality. So once one person is like, "Oh, that's a real kid," then they're like, "Whoa, yeah, all right, maybe we went too far." I give them credit for thinking twice about just putting that kid out there and tearing him apart.
Yes. But once they escape, Joe, in order to solve David's problem of finding out who he is, where his mom is, he said, well, let's go to Dr. No. I'm like, they're going into a James Bond movie?
Dr. No.
It's Alexa, pretty much, is what they go to. Hey, Alexa. Hey, Dr. No. Tell David where his mom is.
It's like a giant magic 8-ball.
Yeah, and voiced by
Robin Williams as Einstein, as an animated Einstein. Yeah. Wait, before we get there though, this is the whole what he brings up, that he's looking for the blue fairy. He wants to go because at one point she was reading him Pinocchio.
Yes.
But at Martin's behest. Haha, you think you want to be a real boy? I'm going to tell you a story. But Pinocchio becomes a real boy in the end.
Yes, so he does.
Why would you want to read that and then somehow throw it in his face that he's not real? But the kid, so they're in a car, and this visual is fantastic. This is like right out of Heavy Metal. This city, this Pleasure Island, basically, but it's this hedonistic Rouge City.
Rouge City, yeah.
Okay. The kid in the car with them that picks him up and takes him in, that's Adrian Grenier from Entourage. Blink and you miss him. The bridge that goes into the city that is very Manhattan-like in the sense that there's bridges that, it's like an island. And it's just this big open mouth. It looks like something right out of a Who album or a Rolling Stones album cover.
You know what? I thought that was Spielberg tipping his hat to Kubrick, because that reminded me of the milk bar from Clockwork Orange.
And I think that there is a milk bar that you can see. There's a lot going on when you get into the city, the neon lights. And this is where you really realize that humanity has just gone to hell.
Yeah. I
did read, in order to keep a PG-13 rating, they had to digitally remove a building that was shaped like a penis.
Oh, well, there were some questionable buildings that existed.
Even some of the neon lights with the ladies, and there's some crazy stuff going on. If people were outraged by the Porky's Pig neon sign out front, this is gonna send you into a titty. Yeah, but you're right. So this is where we're introduced to this Dr. No.
Yes, and to your point, that's what David is asking about. The blue fairy. How many questions did they get? 7, I think.
I think there were 7 total, but who still has change? Why we're not going to have change in the future? Joe just has change. I guess he gets paid in ducats or whatever. But it takes him all 7 questions to get out what it is that he's looking for.
Suddenly, Dr. No goes into a trance. Like, he asks the right question, and he recites this thing about at the end of the world where the lions weep, and you're thinking to yourself, well, what just happened there? Why is Dr. No saying this? And it is explained.
I didn't like this. Boy, Dr. No set him up, but I mean, he did and he didn't. They hijacked it and basically.
So suddenly, now they care. Now Cybertronics cares.
All of a sudden they're tracking him.
Yeah,
they tracked him into the city. It wouldn't be that hard to actually just grab this kid. The cops were after Joe. So somehow David steals a helicopter, a police helicopter at that.
And they fly away.
With Teddy and Joe. And 10 minutes later, they're in Manhattan.
And it was
very convenient.
One of the first things you see is the World Trade Center underwater. So I'm like, this is 2001. So
yeah, I guess Spielberg had the option to get rid of that, and he chose to leave it in there as a tribute.
Yeah, well, the movie came out in June of that year, so that was, of course, before.
No, I guess when it was released. I'm sorry, when it was released on DVD, they could have easily gotten. Listen, they can erase a penis tower.
Building,
they can really. Yeah, this is like we're off to see the wizard. We're now Wizard of Oz here.
Yeah,
being whisked away, and and again, nice visuals.
And I loved this. I really loved this aspect of the movie.
Did they not see Escape from New York? Just put up a wall, create a seawall. Because poor Statue of Liberty. There's no way that's copper. That thing would have eroded away.
And the sea level, I think you wouldn't be able to even see the torch compared to some of those skyscrapers. The statue is comparatively small, so I think she would be completely underwater. But yeah, they go to Manhattan. They find the Cybertronics headquarters, which is the secret headquarters, because that's where they actually still are. Their Cybertronics is set up, and William Hurt is set up in that building. Now, I don't know if this is his office, just his personal space, or if they actually conduct business from this building, because it looked like it was fully operational.
Right, yeah, because there is a lab. Like you said, David encounters not only doppelganger David. I'm David. Boy, this kid's got some anger issues, by the way.
And you would think because it's revealed that William Hurt and Cybertronics anticipated David would be looking for the Blue Fairy, because I assume that they finally interviewed the parents about stuff.
But I don't think he brought up the Blue Fairy to the parents or mentioned it at all. Like, I
don't know. Maybe it was off camera. I don't know. For some reason, William Hurt knew about the Blue Fairy.
Well, eventually he's going to make his way to that penis city, and he's going to ask Dr. No.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll just hijack Dr. No, tell him to come here instead.
Yep. But you would think that you would give him more explicit instructions rather than just some vague.
Where the lions weep. It's like, what if you went around? What if you went up the wrong street? You would never see those lions with water coming out. Well, there's lions, but there's statues, and it's just water pouring out. They're not really crying. All right, let's go on. Let's move on.
But no, I do have a note here now that I'm looking at what I wrote down.
Okay, yeah.
That Hurt says at one point that he learned about the Blue Fairy from Monica, the mother.
Oh, okay.
So they actually did take the time to go and interview them. Too little, too late. But they did.
Did the parents go to them and be like, listen, we were out on a picnic and he just wandered away and we don't know what happened to him?
No, I think finally it occurred to William Hurt. Hey, remember that David kid that we gave
the kid that we're mass producing and going to send out
we should really follow up. Let's follow up on that.
Right, the prototype.
Yeah.
He was with the prototype of the time sled in Time Cop.
He also says they wanted to see where his independence would take him. So maybe that was like the challenge. Like
now
if you give him the clue,
in the world. Oh, look, he hooked up with a gigolo. Maybe he'll become a male gigolo. Mm-hmm. At what point do you intervene and be like, all right, kid, you need to come back to the lab? But this is a straight up Geppetto moment, because you find out that Hobby's son is what they made David look like. And he had died. And he says, my son was one of a kind, but you are the first of a kind, but I'm not unique. Because you've now mass produced me.
Here's the Toy Story moment where he finds the room with all the boxes of David and Darlene's.
Because gender inclusive here, so we got a male and a female.
And David can't take it anymore.
I would lose my mind as well.
Yeah,
your parents dumped you. You make your way back to your rightful father for all intents and purposes. And he's like, oh, yeah, we made multiples of you. Yeah, you're not special. Yeah, but I don't know. There is a great shot here where he walks up and he sees the face mask and he shoots it through the face mask. So as David walks into it, his eyes line up with the eye sockets. It's a very, very creepy moment, but very well done. But you're right, though. This is Buzz Lightyear finding out he's a toy.
So David can't take it. He jumps off the top of the building into the water.
Yeah.
And I loved this section where David's kind of floating past Radio City, and it's like the Finding New York in Beneath the Planet of the Apes. I'm bringing that up again.
Yeah.
But, this was fascinating to me. Just hear me out. Those of you that aren't familiar with New York, Radio City is like far and away removed from Coney Island, but somehow.
This makes again. There's leaps and like I said, they steal the helicopter. 10 minutes later, they're in Manhattan. He goes underwater and somehow glimpses this blue ferry that's in Coney Island, which is a completely different area. Not even Manhattan. It is in Queens, but it's kind of like Waterworld the same way when he takes her down and you see the submerged city. Everything's underwater now. The one thing I will say is that the one plus about Manhattan being underwater is that there's no traffic. You don't have to cut through the park to get to the west side anymore. And how convenient that these police helicopters are submersibles as well.
Yeah, they go underwater. Yep.
Like, who's your commissioner? Batman?
But Joe finds them in the police helicopter by going underwater, turning it into a submarine.
They hired Michael Winslow to make that noise, by the way.
The police still haven't stopped chasing Joe all the way to Manhattan.
They really want this guy. Does he get lawyer representation?
I don't know what happens to him.
Because that's it. That's the last we see of Joe.
So really, again, that's all his purpose is to get David from point A to point B.
You are correct.
And to get him in that helicopter, that submersible at the end.
Yeah. I will tell you, this is the point of the movie when I was sitting in the theater when it was like in 2,000 years later. I'm like, are you kidding me? 2,000 years later? What is going on here?
I know. Again, I asked myself, what does he have, an arc reactor in him that he's still operating?
I think that they're Duracell batteries. Keep going.
The submersible ends up in Coney Island. He finds the Blue Fairy, which is a statue.
Yeah, Pinocchio Land. Which I don't think exists.
No.
I do not think that this is a real place.
But the Wonder Wheel, isn't it, that falls over and pins his vehicle?
Yeah, there is, yeah.
Or just a Ferris wheel.
It's a Ferris wheel. I don't remember. Dragon Coaster. No, Dragon Coaster's not there.
So David can't move. He's stuck in this submersible and with Teddy facing the Blue Fairy. So for 2,000 years, he is staring, asking the Blue Fairy to become a real boy.
Yeah, she looked pretty good because if you're underwater, like at some point the paint wears off on
She
you.
was blue and vibrant.
2,000 years later, still looking pretty fresh.
But then, 2,000 years later, here come the alien archaeologists. What a left field.
Okay. Are you ready for this? These are not aliens.
What?
These are not aliens. These are advanced mechas.
Really?
These are not aliens. They look.
Where do you have this information? Where did you find this?
This is fact. This is because when you're first introduced to these, they look like tall versions of Spielberg's Close Encounters of the Third Kind of aliens. They are not aliens.
Is this ever revealed in the movie?
They're advanced AI. Well, they talk about the fact that David is the last vestige of humanity. Like he is their link. They have evolved. They are not aliens. Yeah. And again, I don't blame you at all because I thought the exact same thing. And you're like, it just comes out of left field. They look alien. They somehow find David, thaw him out, or at least drain the water around him, and then tell him that they can bring back to life people, but only for one day.
Only for one day.
But they have to dig them up. Teddy kept that hair all those years.
If they have the technology from a lock of hair to bring someone back, how can they only do it for 24 hours? And how does it? Yeah, is the clock ticking as soon as they come into existence?
Yeah, basically, because David has 24 hours to relive his day with his mother, and they give him that opportunity. And the first thing he does is he starts painting pictures of things that she has no clue about. Look, here's all my adventures. This is what I did while you were dead. I don't care about any of that. I don't understand that. So he spent the one day painting pictures of memories she has no memory. Just chill with your mom. All you are looking for is for her to say, I love you. That's all you want.
And let me tell you, during this sequence, there is so much whitewashing going on where they are hitting you with really bright lights. They are trying to get you to produce some tears.
Yeah. And they bring in Meryl Streep as the voice of the Blue Fairy. This ending is, you're right. It is out of left field. The one thing I will tell you, if you go back and watch the beginning of the movie, the voiceover is done by Ben Kingsley.
Yeah.
Okay. He also is the voice of the Chief Mecha at the end of the movie. So he is the one who is narrating this tale.
Oh, okay.
And my initial thought was, well, if these are mechas, then wouldn't they have been created by humans? And then wouldn't they be the last vestige? Because David looks human. He's interacted. He has memories of his interactions with humans. And so that's what they're looking for. It's like us going 2,000 years in the future, and we have no ties back to history. They're trying their best to use him. They're AI. So at some point, AI just creates AI.
That's apparently so, because this makes more sense to me the more and more we discuss it, throwing my alien idea out the window.
But that's exactly what you think it is.
Because Joe sets it up.
That we are the only ones left. We will be the only ones left. Go back to the very beginning of the movie. The first shot that you see when Monica's husband, I can't even remember his name now, David's pseudo dad. Yeah. They open the door and David is standing there. You talk about whitewash. Everything is blown out, and David's shape almost looks like one of these creatures, where the neck is elongated with the head at the top until the light dissipates and you see his full figure. So he's laying the groundwork. It's Spielberg being Spielberg. You know, we can't have this without a happy ending. But is it happy? Because he dies. He dies, right?
He does.
He dies happy. He gets 24 hours with his mom. And then he curls up in bed with her. I love you. I've always loved you, kind of a thing. And that's it. That's the program fulfilled. I have no other mission in life. You're not going to live, so I'm not going to live. So does he just shut down? Where does this leave Teddy? Teddy's now got to hang out with these stupid AI guys. So what's your story? I'm a bear. Boy, if I could tell you tales. Like, poor Teddy's stuck with these dudes.
I know. Are there still AI kids that look like these things too?
I don't know. Okay, so this I pulled directly from, I don't know if it was IMDb, but this was an explanation, which is the future mechas, much like human beings, are in search for information regarding their past, which is why David is such a perfect specimen for them to find, given he lived among humans and his mind is filled with their interactions. But they let him die. They allowed him to fulfill his life mission, I guess, and then die. So now you're not getting anything from him.
Yeah, and Ben Kingsley's keep looking.
That was stupid.
Let's keep looking.
There's got to be at least another 2,000-year-old kid laying around here somewhere.
We found him. Let's keep looking.
Maybe they interrogated Gigolo Joe, and he's like, yeah, he's in Coney Island. Why don't you just go there? We'll get there in 2,000 years. They did not talk like that. So that's it. End of story.
So like I said, it was released in June of 2001. So it was June 29th. So going into the July 4th weekend.
Okay. Yep.
So it was a big tentpole movie. The budget was around $100 million and it made $235 million. So it was a hit for Spielberg.
Yeah, I'm going to say that this is probably one of his most stylish and thought-provoking movies.
Yeah, I would say that as well.
It does, I think, require repeat viewings. You do kind of take it, again, when I first saw this, I was a brand new dad. Now watching it, and just the thought of this, regardless if he's a real kid or a robot, you're abandoning this thing. Mm-hmm. It's like the equivalent of dumping a kitten
in a bag over the bridge. Right. Stan
Winston Studios created Teddy. The T-Rex in Jurassic Park had 40 points of articulation. Teddy has over 50. And the guy who did his voice, Jack Angel, was on set every day. So if they wanted to run new dialogue or whatever, he was there. So I don't know if he had if he was like a full-on Charlie Fleischer with a Roger Rabbit hat on, but he was on set doing the voice of Teddy.
And speaking of Teddy, Hasbro actually made a talking Teddy from this movie. I don't know how limited it was. I never saw it.
Teddy Ruxpin?
No, Teddy from this movie.
They actually had a branded AI. This is not a kid's movie.
No. Well, that's the thing, is that they did no merchandising, and only months after the movie came out did this, I guess, hit the market in a very limited capacity for collectors.
I don't know anything about that.
But interesting casting choices. We were talking about Kubrick not thinking that a child could actually do this role. He did screen test Joey Mazzello post Jurassic Park. Even though when Spielberg was given that opportunity by Kubrick to direct the movie and he would produce, Spielberg turned him down, but only it was after Kubrick died that he actually took the mantle from him to direct this movie.
All right. So that does make sense.
Yeah.
I'm going to say no to you now, but now that you're dead, now I just look like a jerk.
Now I got to do it.
now I got to at least fulfill. No one else can do this but me.
And a lot of people at the time kind of put it on Spielberg. Oh, Kubrick would never have done an ending like that.
That was straight up Kubrick's ending.
But yeah,
I just blamed him as well, saying it was a happy ending.
Ian Watson said the final 20 minutes are pretty close to what I wrote for Stanley, and it was faithfully filmed by Spielberg without added schmaltz. And that was his quote.
That is so even they were like, all right, dude, we know what you're capable of.
Yeah.
Just stick to the script, please. Don't bring in Mickey Mouse.
And Frances O'Connor is the actress that plays Monica, the mom. Julianne Moore and Gwyneth Paltrow were considered for that part.
I could easily see Julianne Moore, and she probably would have brought definitely some more gravitas, because I did not care for that.
Yeah, maybe some sympathy.
Yeah, no, there was no sympathy. She got her kid back, so why does she need this stupid thing now? Yeah.
My wife thanked you because she said this was one of the most depressing movies that she has ever sat through. She hadn't seen it before.
Oh, I apologize. You got stuck watching it. So to me, it was a perfect pairing for Pinocchio.
Yeah.
You know, the parallels are right there on its sleeve. We didn't get no Monstro, though.
We didn't.
But then again, we didn't get a Monstro.
We came close when he went underwater.
We didn't get one.
That would have been fabulous if they had, because they were in Pinocchio land. Why didn't they have a Monstro statue there too? That would have been great underwater.
That he just went into
just like a jump scare, where the helicopter
comes out of the dark.
Yeah.
Oh, dude. Someone's got to get on Spielberg.
You see, well, I mean, Lucas does these special editions. Spielberg, you lost the golden opportunity there.
Now with 100% more Monstro.
Yep, added Monstro.
Yep, coming to your IMAX theater near you.
So out of 5 buckets, what would we give AI?
Boy, it's a tough movie. I want to go 3.5, but I think just because of the artistic merits of it, I'm gonna go 4. I think that it's definitely something you should see. Because of the history and the story behind it, I think gives it that extra half a bucket for me. Because it is a pretty impressive story that Spielberg came in and basically took the reins. And I think that Haley Joel Osment does a fantastic job.
He does.
Never breaks character.
He doesn't.
And he's flawless. And so is Jude Law. I mean, Jude Law, again, you like him as a character. You get no resolution. You don't know whatever happens to this character. But yeah, 4. I'm giving it 4.
Yeah, I agree with the Haley Joel Osment assessment, because he never shirks away from it. He is creepy and robotic, but there's a yearning to him as well at the same time. He doesn't know how to act. Like that one scene in particular is a perfect example of that, at the dinner table when he laughs maniacally because they're laughing.
Because he's just watching, he's just trying to emulate what they're doing. The same thing when him and Martin go at it, eating food, and he's shoving the spinach in his mouth. You know, and he's like, whatever. I'm not above making an ass of myself because I'm a robot.
So, and I admire it because, as you said, it's an anomaly. Can't think of a movie that has been birthed under similar circumstances to this, especially with such kingpins.
Well, the pedigree, is pretty impressive. So.
Like Spielberg taking up the torch from Kubrick. So even though it is a Spielberg movie, it's got DNA from both of them in it. So I think, unlike David, this is really unique. I don't think we're going to see anything like this again. But at the same time, the movie leaves me cold. It's too Spartan and aseptic. It doesn't have as much emotion. It doesn't have the emotional heft, I think, that they were looking for. Especially those early scenes where the parents are just rejecting David until they finally drop him off in the woods. Just it makes me pull back emotionally. I'm going to go with what your original assessment was with a 3.5 bucket.
Which is still high for you. So
it is still high. Yeah, this is an achievement, and I'm not going to say that it's not.
Yeah.
But just as an emotional experience, it's definitely not on my 5 bucket list.
No, not at all. Nor do I need to see it for another 21 years.
Yeah, true.
Your wife is traumatized as it is.
I wish I had a Teddy. I wish I had that Hasbro Teddy. Please don't. When you hang him upside down,
I'm turning you in.
This is going to hurt. You'll break me. Please don't.
I get upset when I go to sit on the couch and the cat meows at me. I'm like, what do you want? I actually downloaded an app. It's called Meow Talker. That apparently, if you record your cat, it'll translate and tell me what he's saying. And I'm like, do I really want to know what this?
That is BS. Somebody said, you know what people will pay for?
Yes. I'm like right there. I'm like, I got to try this. So I think I know what he wants. So, but if I had a Teddy that just walked, like after a while, the thing would just get bored. He's like, what are you doing on the couch again? Are you really eating another bag of chips? Like Jiminy Cricket, shut the F up. Leave me alone.
Be still, Teddy. Be still.
Yeah. Come over here so I can remove your batteries. All right. Well, there you go.
Pinocchio and AI.
Boy, I feel like we've been talking about this for weeks.
We have, and I'm still underwhelmed.
Pinocchio.
So maybe we have something to save this episode with what else we did this week. It's not likely, though. It's not likely because I think we did the same thing. We both watched Morbius this past week. So let's talk about it. Now, all right, talk about forgettable.
Wow, you're leading strong.
I think the only thing worthy in having a discussion about this movie is the end credit.
So this is on Netflix. And when this originally dropped, we had it on our schedule. We were gonna cover this. And then the word came out that it was just getting slammed. Mm-hmm. It was just being annihilated. People, the hate for this thing. And so we backed off. And now, what, 6 months later, 8 months later, however long, it drops on Netflix. People are starting to watch this. And the one thing I keep hearing, it's not as bad as I thought.
Well, it's serviceable. It's not like Plan 9 from Outer Space bad. It's like you've been there, done that.
Yes. I will. There's a lot of nice things to look at and to appreciate of what they did. But yeah, this is basically Doctor Strange plus Batman plus Spider-Man plus Superman. It's all the stuff that we've seen before in these superhero movies kind of rolled into one with a very unlikable character.
I really don't know what Sony's game plan is with these things. These are supposed to be villains that they are building into heroes. These are
he's an anti-hero because he goes.
But he's not an anti-hero in the comics. He's straight up villain. He's a vampire that Spider-Man fights on a regular basis.
Well, the same thing with Venom. I think they want you to have some kind of a sympathy for these characters. We can't just be rooting straight up for bad guys.
Well, Venom, I think, is an exception because Venom, they actually did try to make him an anti-hero in the comics. So that makes sense to me.
Eventually, I don't think initially he was just
initially he was a villain. Initially he was a villain, but Morbius never. And same thing with Craven. Like, how can this guy sustain his own movie without Spider-Man?
I'm curious. I mean, we can't say anything about that until it drops. But more than likely because they are setting up this Sinister Six. So Jared Leto, say what you will about him, I think does a really good job of at least inhabiting this character.
And Matt Smith, I think, is a great adversary. I love Matt Smith.
Yes, he was having way too much fun, but there was complete leaps in logic with Matt Smith's character just being a jerk, just being a like you didn't paint him to be this, but the minute he gets these powers, he just becomes an idiot, a mean guy, like he's mean, like he's a that's straight up what he is. And Leto's like, because there's a scene where Leto, it opens in Costa Rica. You see him, he's frail. He needs these walkers in order to even walk. And he's trying to extract blood from these bats or capture them.
I don't know.
It's a nice scene. It's a nice visual and it sets it up. the introduction of this character. And I said, this is very much Doctor Strange. It's an unlikable character who's put into a situation. Unfortunately, Jared Leto is no Benedict Cumberbatch, who does become, even though he is a jerk to everyone around him, is still a likable character. You still root for him.
Yeah.
This guy, creates this cure. And I rejected the Nobel Prize and how noble of you kind of a thing. And of course, that Matt Smith's character, who for whatever reason, they call Milo. Now, at the very beginning of the movie, when they're little kids, his kid introduces him. He's Lucian. Well,
his real name. My
real name is Lucian. Well, you're just Milo to me because every other kid who was in that bed dies. And I just call them Milo. But everyone in this movie, as a grown adult, calls him Milo. And I'm like, that makes no sense whatsoever. Like, why would you keep that name? That's my professional name now.
Yeah, because even the doctor yes. who takes care of them also calls him Milo, as if telling the kid every time you call him Milo, you're reminding the kid that he's going to die.
Yeah. So, but there is a reference when he's a little kid and they go to send him away, and he goes, "Oh, there's a school for gifted students in the Americas," and I'm like, "Did we just mention Xavier, like X-Men school?" But that never came through. There's a Venom reference. I'm Venom. Didn't he say that I am?
He
Venom?
said I'm Venom as a joke to one of his somebody.
Okay, so that means that Venom does exist in this timeline, in this universe.
Yes,
and apparently Spider-Man does too, because we'll get to the end credit. But there's a scene where he literally says, "I'm hungry. You wouldn't like me when I'm hungry," and I'm like, "Come on, stop." But there's some nice sequences. There's a great fight sequence between the two of them in the subways. I thought that was a lot of fun. He's doing the air dolphin as Matt Smith is like barreling down on him, and he realizes that he can see like air currents or whatever. And he rides the air wind in front of the train. Imagine being that train engineer, by the way.
I know. Yeah,
like dude, there's I got a guy flying in front of me. Bob, you need to come off the clock. The radar, the bat radar that he uses. I thought there was some nice stuff going on.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I saw this like maybe 3 nights ago, and I've forgotten half of it already, though.
Well, I just saw it last night, so I did write down some notes. But yeah, let's unpack this end credit scene, because this really is divisive. Some people who like this movie thought this movie was okay, like you said, serviceable, were mad at this end credit.
Because here's the thing, is that apparently even in the trailer, there's a screen grab of Spider-Man in the background, and it says murderer. So this movie originally was going to come out after Far From Home.
Okay.
Yep. So that's the one where he supposedly murders Mysterio, and the Daily Bugle is saying that he's a murderer. And so this was part of the Morbius movie. So from those initial trailers, you thought, okay, this is in the Spider-Man MCU world. But apparently all those references to Tom Holland's Spider-Man were removed prior to the release of Morbius.
Which is stupid, because they are in the trailer. People dissected those trailers when they came out. And you're right. At least you're like, all right. So again, Sony, Venom, it's not existing in its own world. The little tendrils of at least explaining that this is all taking place in the same universe. We even saw Michael Keaton in the trailer as his character, the Vulture.
In the post-credits sequence, you see the inter-reality rift opening over New York, just like you did in Far From Home, the purple, lights, the light show and everything.
Which I want to know, are they directly referencing going all the way back to Loki with Kang? No, it's a completely separate time rip, but it's the same visual effect.
It's the same visual effect.
Yeah. But if you don't know that, you don't understand any of this credit. You're like, what just happened?
If you didn't see Far From Home, then you're stuck. So the rift closes, and suddenly you get Michael Keaton's Toomes character in a jail cell in this reality. And he looks around and he says, well, I hope they have better grub here, as if he realizes what's happened to him.
That he somehow came into a different world. Like, where I came from, we don't have concrete. I don't know what's going on.
So
that makes no sense.
So that goes on further. So in this reality, Toombs isn't guilty of anything, right? So
not only that, he probably doesn't even exist. Because if the news comes out and says, "Hey, we found this guy in a cell, and we can't find any reason for him to be there,"
but they call him by name. But they call him by name.
So if this is an alternate reality, this is a different universe. There is no counterpart. Because if I'm watching the news and I'm like, "Wait a minute, that's me. What am I doing in there?" No. Whoa, something's going on. So he gets free, and somehow has all of his vulture equipment.
Exactly. That was my other thing. Yes. Because you don't see him with that when he ends up in the cell. He's just in his prison outfit. Right.
So, and then he goes free. You see him being set free.
I guess he calls a meeting with Morbius out in the middle of nowhere.
Morbius is driving out in the desert. It's like, but you're now a bat guy, so why don't you just fly?
Mm-hmm.
No, he's driving. So he drives out. And sure enough, here comes the Vulture. And he's in his full costume, uniform. He never takes his helmet off. So you know that...
That's not Michael Keaton.
You know that Michael Keaton just did the voiceover. It doesn't even sound like him, to be honest with you. But then he just says, "I think people like us should get together. We should team up. We can do good.
We can do a lot of good." That's what he says. I'm like, so what's going on? Is this the Avengers now? What is?
Yeah, it's a Dark Avengers. Yeah. What do you think about Spider-Man? I'm listening.
No, he says all I know is that this has something to do with Spider-Man, and that's what he says. So you don't know if Spider-Man exists in this reality, or if Morbius even knows what he's talking about when he says Spider-Man.
Morbius is like, "I'm listening," or he says, "I'm in," or whatever, and then it just cuts.
So all we really know is that this exists in the same universe that Venom does, because he gives that reference, "I'm Venom," at one point. So, and then we also know from the end of the second Venom movie is that when Eddie Brock is watching TV and he sees when he gets zapped into the MCU reality and he sees Tom Holland on the TV and he says to his symbiote, "We have to go talk to this Peter Parker." Is he aware of the Spider-Man from his reality? If that's the case, I don't know. So there's a lot of talk out there that this is the Andrew Garfield Amazing Spider-Man reality that we're in with Morbius and Venom, that this could be the Spider-Man of this reality. And this is how they're going to get Andrew Garfield back into Spider-Man movies.
Is Andrew Garfield laying these out there? Is he the one?
He's not. No, this is like, just...
I think it's Andrew Garfield. Yeah. You are Andrew Garfield. No, I'm just saying. I think that the audiences want him back.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that that's exactly what's happening, is that they're trying to will this into being as an explanation.
It seems very shoehorned. Okay, well, I guess we'll have to just, because you're right. Craven is set to come out. I don't think we have any more Venom, right?
Not at the moment. No.
So that's only 3. If you're going to do a Sinister Six, that's
so
3.
It does make sense, because what if Sony and Marvel come to another impasse where they can't get on the same page with contracts or whatsoever, like we had that situation.
They have an alternate Spider-Man in their back pocket.
They have an out. So I could see why they wanted to take out all reference to the MCU Spider-Man, so they could continue with something potentially if Marvel and them didn't see eye to eye in the future.
I think that's way too much thought put into it, to be honest with you. But then again, you can't take these end credits as face value anymore.
No.
Because all it takes is
it may never be referenced again. This may be the last we ever hear of it. Who knows?
that would be even worse.
It would.
You teasing me. It never came true. Well, so there you go. That is what we did. Else Morbius.
So what are we doing next week? Oh,
This
next week is something that I've been working towards on the calendar for months and months and months. Anybody that's listened for a long time knows that I'm a huge David Bowie fan, and a major new motion picture has been released by the name of Moon Age Daydream, which is one of Bowie's songs from the Ziggy Stardust album. And this is a documentary / retrospective cinematic experience. And we are
experience. Yes, that is exactly what I'm going to say. A cinematic odyssey. I think that's how they actually. Yeah, this is. My ears are still ringing. My ears are irreparably damaged.
We just saw this yesterday, but it's a whole week until we talk about it. So we hope you come back for that. And along with it,
we're going to lose our minds in Detroit Rock City.
Yes, we are.
Kiss.
We are spending some time with other artists that were fond of makeup. And actually, they still are at this point in their careers.
They've gone back and forth.
They've gone back and forth.
There was that unmasked years, but they will. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if they gave it up 20 years ago. You will ever be known as the band with the kabuki makeup.
And I don't know. Kiss kind of transcends the glam rock thing, because I don't think anybody would classify them as glam rock. Yeah. Because they're like metal heroes, right? Yeah. They're hard rock metal heroes. So they're not quite metal, but they're in that category, I think, that Van Halen kind of populate, where it's like hard rock, but not quite into that metal category.
Well, listen, Kiss did break into the top 10 with a couple songs, Beth. I Was Made for Loving You, which I guess was their disco answer to what was going on at the time. And one of my favorite Kiss songs, but we'll get into that because this is a fun movie. Ed Furlong, by the way, John Connor himself makes an appearance here in Detroit Rock City. Yeah, we see more of them than we want to. All right, but so there you go.
Next week.
Moon Age Daydream.
Yes.
I'm still trying to wrap my head around this, but we'll get to it next week.
All right.
Thanks for listening. All right, bye.
Hey, everybody. If you like what you just heard, be sure to follow TMI Confessionals of the Nerd Kind on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, or whatever you listen to your favorite podcasts on. Be sure to hit that subscribe button and then share it with your fellow movie nerd friends. It means the world to us and helps our listenership grow.
You can also find us on all of the socials, Instagram and Twitter at TMI_podcast 2018. We're on Facebook and YouTube as well. Just look for the Popcorn Bucket.
You can help support this show by visiting our TeePublic page for some TMI branded goodies such as hoodies, t-shirts, mugs, and stickers. TeePublic.com/TMI Confessionals, all one word.
A 5-star review would be incredibly nice as well. I'm just saying.
Thanks again for listening. We truly appreciate you. Be sure to come back next week. We'll save some popcorn for you.
This kid could come back to life. I'm making a wife.